there is a big backlog of new aircrafts under the production. So that is causing many of the reasons why it is so difficult now in the supply chain.
It's a very strong combination and complexity of an issue.
The companies are looking into having even more in their storages to keep the maintenance activities always under control.
The easiest one is to lease spare assets, even if we speak about an aircraft itself, about an engine, airframe, APU, or any other component. We would definitely behave how the industry wants us to behave. So we are diversifying our portfolio.
Now, just looking at the aviation industry more on a macro level, especially on the supply chain, there's a lot of supply-demand pressure that's there, especially looking at things like aircraft capacity in the market, pressures on maintenance, maintenance slots as well. Is there enough capacity in the market to meet the demand that's there? Toma, to start off with you, can you just give us an overview of, some of the pressures that are on the supply chain today? I mean, what's really going on in the market?
Actually, it is now a big issue, as you have mentioned, and there is a lot of reasons affecting this. So first of all, there is a big backlog of new aircrafts under the production. So that is causing many of the reasons why it is so difficult now in the supply chain. So first of all, there is not enough parts for aging aircrafts. So we see that operators are flying as much as they can of the maximum capacity. As well, they are using the aircrafts for all possible flights. So that means that they need to have maintenance even more controlled. So the companies are looking into having even more in their storages to keep the maintenance activities always under control. As well, there is shortages for materials, and it caused by the war in between Russia and Ukraine, as Russia was one of the biggest producers for titanium and aluminium. As well, there is issues in labor shortages. That as well is affecting special maintenance activities and MRO organizations. So all together are affecting all the chain, meaning that if there is any issues on one part, it's bringing a big effect on another. So that is the situation that we are having today, that the demand is bigger than the supply is.
Mm-hmm. One aspect which you mentioned in there, and kind of focusing more on Airbus and Boeing, which the industry is very reliant on. Now they've both given reforecasts of their production for this year as well. And when you look at the industry, there are a lot of lease extensions that are there and limited capacity that's there as well. What is happening in the industry, or what are some of the effects that you're seeing, especially from a marketplace perspective, kind of play out with some of these changes that are happening?
So with those changes, we see that there is interest on the parts supplies for older aircrafts which are flying. New aircrafts as well, they have specific issues, especially with engines, like the ones from Pratt & Whitney. According to those issues, the aircrafts are grounded, not under the plans, so that is as well affecting the supply chain. But what we see from those reforecasted production items, that companies are having shorter leases. For shorter leases as well, they need to have more slots availability, more tests, more controls. As well, there is a big attention to critical parts and components. Aging aircrafts, they need to have more complex maintenance activities, so companies are having even bigger teams inside. So those backlogs are affecting many areas in aviation, giving the critical issues, and companies need to really bring a big focus onto this.
Hanna, you're working very closely, especially with the engine market. How are you seeing some of these issues? Again, the production reforecast, limited capacity. How are you seeing this play out, especially in the engine market?
I would begin with a number of engine shop visits, which is now at 2,500. and growing to 3,000 next year and up to 4,000 by 2028. And what I would definitely agree with Toma is that there is not only one part suffering from the pressure and the demand for all possible services. It's a very strong combination and complexity of an issue. So starting from OEMs manufacturing engines, and they keep trying to keep up with the demand, ending with the repair shops able to maintain the needed amount of engines, including spare parts production, lack of critical components needed for the production of specific elements.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's just expand a little bit on that. If you were to identify some of the patterns, going on in the engine market today, obviously there is now a strong reliance on older model engines as well, and a lot of demand to, service or put into maintenance the newer generation model of engines. What are some of the patterns that you can identify currently happening in the engine market? Because it seems, there are issues across all generations of engines.
Definitely, yes. It's not only older or newer engines facing issues. I would say there is non-single engine which is not experiencing difficulties. But what's the interesting part of that, the older but more reliable engine, the CFM56, looks good again, comparing it to the newer generation engines. And the main pattern I see, and I think the industry would agree, right, that the newer engines were not supposed to enter shops that early. And that's the major cause of the situation we see now in the market. They are fulfilled with both newer and older generation engines, which require attention, let's say. And this is the only reason I would say causing all of the similar problems for everybody. So you need slots, you need labor, you need spare parts, you need time, you need a lot of tooling, and you have to do it on time, not disturbing airlines operations.
Maybe if we even just expand on that, looking just at the general maintenance, MRO organizations as well. Now, MRO organizations, they interact with your platforms, Locatory, almost on a daily basis, and they require or they rely on it, to get a, forecast of what's in the market, what capacity is there, what supply can they try and acquire. What pressures are MRO organizations or the maintenance industry kind of dealing with? And Toma, this is over to you. And what are some of the patterns that you're seeing emerging within the MRO industry?
So basically, I would say there is the effect on all industry, and MRO organizations are the ones which needs to deal with this. So as they need to have the maintenance activities for the aircrafts, and the expectations both from lessors and operators are that all maintenance activities will be done as soon as possible, and or at least according to plan. So MRO organizations, they do have a big pressure for this. The ones who are having really good planning activities and the ones who are having really good suppliers base, those organizations have best outcome. Those organizations always have the success with customers, and customers want to return to the same MRO organizations. And now actually it is as well a lot of different agreements between operators and MRO organizations, because they see what is the effect from different kind of organizations. So MRO organizations, mostly they are coming to marketplaces to find more suppliers, to have more diversified base of the suppliers in terms to keep their inventory always equipped with the materials and parts or components they need. As well, they're minimizing the risk to be reliant on several particular suppliers, as before it was pretty normal. As well, MRO organizations, they do have much more close connections and collaboration with operators, where do they plan according to operators' needs the maintenance activities.
Maybe just even stemming off that, Hanna, how are you seeing that play out, especially on engine slots, right? For servicing for the engine slots, again, for both the newer generation and older generation model of engines. How are you seeing that play out, especially on the pressures to, fulfill that demand for more engine shop visits?
I would underline that there are two main aspects. So the first one is definitely the turnaround time we all speak about, which is increasing. And as you mentioned, for an older engines, it's like 35%. Speaking about newer generation engines, it's over 150% increase of a TAT. But there is another issue. It's waiting time for a slot and maintenance organization, which now increased to 3 to months. And in some cases, for some specific models, it's even about 6 months long now.
And so what then are, or Toma, do you want to add to that as well?
Yes, and I would say as well that the prices for all maintenance activities have increased for almost 50%.
How then is that playing? I mean, what are some of the solutions that you're seeing in the industry, that people are now relying on, be it suppliers, traders, OEMs, manufacturers? What solutions are you then seeing them implement, let's say in the short term, to try and either circumvent or to meet this demand, where there's limited capacity right now? So maybe, Hanna, you can expand on that?
If we would speak about an airline, an operator, we all know the main goal for them is to keep flying with no disruptions, no groundings, unplanned maintenance and checks. So for them, the goal number one is to ensure their fleet is in a good shape, ready to do what they are supposed to do. It's not going according to a plan as everybody wants to. So the very short-term solution, let's say the easiest one, is to lease spare assets, even if we speak about an aircraft itself, about an engine, airframe, APU, or any other component. The leasing options are not that many. It's either a leasing company or another operator having a capacity to back up another operator. If we take OEM side, solution number one is boosting the capacity of existing stations and opening new lines, opening in other regions closer to the customers in the places where it's more needed, with the same goal to reduce all of the possible timings, production of spare parts, delivery, repairs, the shipment itself, to save the costs and time.
And Toma, what are some of the short-term solutions that you're seeing kind of play out more on the macro level?
We would say that we see in our marketplace, according to our members of the usage, so there is more companies who are active to have very direct communication and collaboration with each other. As well, companies are increasing the teams inside, which would be really focused on planning and having really control of all the operations that are coming. Before it was more based on the agreements, but now everyone is controlling on top of this. As well, to mitigate the risks, everyone is trying to be more diversified, looking to different locations, as Hanna mentioned, having additional suppliers, having additional sources for searching spare parts, components as well. We see that the industry overall, all the members have been much more proactive, starting from leasing the aircrafts and finding the ones available in the market, and as well going into the shortages of labor, where everyone is trying to have all teams fully fulfilled. So as well, companies are investing a lot to have full teams ready to do all the activities and operations.
One of the trends that's kind of emerging is that you've got either airlines, suppliers, MRO organizations trying to acquire capacity in the future, right? They're trying to preempt and say, all right, what either spare parts or slots, maintenance slots, can we acquire in the future? Exactly. How are you seeing that play out, Toma?
Exactly. Now everyone is trying to be secured for future, and especially for critical parts, as I mentioned before, it is very crucial to be ready. Before it was more sure that the parts will be received, material will arrive, and so on. But now it's very important to be more prepared. So companies are buying this in advance, having buffers for this, as well as adding additional control of this. So this pattern we do see, and as well we do see from the activity from our marketplace members. On top, they are interested as well to have additional services, as everyone is fully busy now. So to control the materials and all the parts that they have in warehouses, that became as well very important.
Mm-hmm. And Hanna, how is that playing out in the engine market as well?
I would start from saying the same, similar point I underlined before. The issues and failures of newer generation engines influence the current generation engines, which are not leaving the market. What it basically means, there are less and less assets being turned down, which affects the lack of serviceable used material on an aftermarket needed for timely repairs. OEMs are struggling producing the enough amount of components. There is nothing on the aftermarket you can use for the replacement, and that's where we end up having all of the delays currently.
Toma, you mentioned the aftermarket before. What are then some of the pressures that you're seeing play out, especially in the short and medium term?
So the biggest issue I would say there is with the production and the parts availability in the market. So first of all, OEMs, they do not have capacity to produce so many parts as it is needed. For older aircrafts as well, some of the production is even cancelled. So there is a capacity only in the aftermarket, which grew by 15% lately. So this is the biggest pressure. What is happening then that when the supply is lower than the demand, there is a need, a different niche for another type of parts. So this is suspected unimproved parts, which are now becoming a very critical topic in the aviation market as well.
Mm-hmm. And, you brought up these SUPs, the, suspected unapproved parts or unauthorized parts. Again, a growing trend that's emerging in the market, as you mentioned. What are then some of the solutions to, mitigate that or to remedy them, or to remedy their appearance in the market?
As we had really critical situations in the market, and we saw that when the technologies are becoming better and better, so there is opportunity as well to produce more of them to the market. But it is very important to identify them. So companies are investing in training their staff to understand, to better see which parts are unimproved, and to get less of them to the market. So there is a big investment into this. This is a new hot topic, I would say. And as well, I would say that this critical topic should be even discussed on a higher level, how you should avoid them to went into the market, as lately it was really with the engine spare parts going into the market when airlines needed to ground so many aircrafts, and it affected their revenue streams and so on. So it's a big issue.
Still on this topic of remedies and stemming off what you've spoken about, Toma, what remedies or solutions are you then seeing in the engine market, Hanna, to, let's say, mitigate and circumvent some of the issues that are there?
If we take it, point by point, the first one to mention would definitely be a technology improvement and engine redesign. So both CFM and Pratt & Whitney perfectly know the weak spots of their new engines. So their main focus is on solving these issues. Then another thing, again, about the disruption of an airline operations, it could be a fleet strategies. If we take a good example of what Lufthansa is doing, they are switching the more stable and reliable fleet on critical and longer routes, at the same time putting newer generation aircrafts and engines on less critical routes.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, of course, the improvement of the whole infrastructure and collaboration between the stakeholders and all of the parties involved it requires a lot of investment, and that's what GE does. They do have a plan to invest over $1 billion over the next 5 years into their chain optimization. This would definitely include ensuring that available tooling is there at their current stations. It is about the opening of new stations for them, which are 19, is spread around the world. Stuff, their training licenses for all needed capacity.
Now, Hanna, just expanding on that, and a very interesting aspect, a comparison between the post-COVID era and the era that we are in today, which is a full recovery, but limited capacity. And of course, in the post-COVID era, there was a rebound in traffic, but then a drive to try and reactivate the capacity that wasn't there. What would you give as your comparison of these two eras that we have experienced now?
This would be honestly my opinion, which might be subjective. What I see from the markets like I work with, these are two different times. Post-COVID time was an issue that the capacity was there was no demand. It started rising up, and then we faced an issues like the shortage of labor, not enough qualified staff, not enough tools. Everything was stored and you had to return it back to service. If we speak about the situation now, the demand is too high to be able to handle that. And that's a little different issue because you cannot physically fit in everybody who needs your service. And I would say that two different, very similar situations happened in a very short period of time. It's just several years' time. But I would still think that the current situation is a way more different.
Mm-hmm. And Toma, what is your take on that?
There is still a lot of difficulties after the COVID, and there is a lot of shortages in labor, especially. Of course, there was there was a lot of disruption on logistics side, on material receiving, and as well as I said, there are labor shortages. So this is very affecting still all aviation industry, starting looking to all different positions, and the business is seeing a lot of critical issues here. So as we see now, companies are still trying to recover. We are still recovering from after the COVID. There is a lot of companies who are having recovering activities and actions. So everything is affecting that there is not enough spare parts, material components in the market. So I would say that it will continue for some time still. There is even some people are getting back to aviation. Some of the lines that were closed, OEMs are reopening. Suppliers as well, they are having more different ways of working, and they are making more diversification on different areas to supply their materials and parts. So there is still a lot of activities happening to get back to the normal situation.
Just taking a broader look now, especially at the supply chain, looking at some of the implications and effects of incidents or occasions such as the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or rising pressures and tensions in the Middle East as well. What are some of the implications that you're seeing play out from that, and solutions as well to try and circumvent or to meet the demands that were once filled in before that and now need new solutions? What are you seeing play out from there, Toma?
So still companies are very focused to have more diversification of their suppliers and supply chain, to have different capabilities to receive the supplies they need. So there was a really big sources of titanium and aluminum in Russia, and now companies were searching for new ways how to receive it. So there is new countries where they started to receive from. So this is Japan, Kazakhstan, for example. It will take some more time to discover and define and have the agreements with the new sources. So, but this is bringing the first effects, good effects and positive effects, actually to make it again back to normal. And as well, there is, according to the restrictions that appeared newly in the aviation, operators as well MRO organizations, they needed to replan all their processes and kept all operations as well as supply chain according to this. So that will continue still. It gave a new disruption on top of the post-COVID situation. So that is not giving a better situation. But as I said, everyone is actively looking for all possible solutions, and it's getting better.
And Hanna, for you, how is that playing out in the engine market?
It's very similar. The issue is almost the same, right? That's a lack of some specific materials needed for production or repairs of some components. And both countries, or let's say the geographical location of them, was one of the main sources. So the solution is either finding an alternative provider for the needed material or alternative material to produce the same component.
Just still looking on this global aspect, there's growing supply chain demand as well in the Asia-Pacific market. Could you just give us a snapshot and overview of, how that's progressing from your perspective? Hanna, from you.
The Asian Pacific is a very fast-growing market. If we take China or India, there are a lot of more people flying than we do in Europe. They would definitely need a huge amount of new aircraft to enter their market to be able to satisfy the needs of the people, right? And at the same time, all of that infrastructure has to be there in place on time when the peak rises, and then to support and service all of the aircraft and assets in that region.
And Toma, what's your take on that?
As well, we see that Asia Pacific is growing a lot. There is much more flights happening. People are traveling much more. There, as well, aviation companies see a lot of opportunities in this specific region. So what is good that there is very good for big companies or small companies, medium-sized companies for expansion, or new companies establishing it as well. As Hanna mentioned, now infrastructure is most important to build there, as it was not there yet. So this region we see as the fastest growing now in the world. A lot of potentiality, and as well it may help to diversify all operations as well as supply chain operations.
Now, we've discussed a range of topics today, about the supply chain, all the different players in the market and the different pressures and dynamics that they're dealing with. Looking forward into the future, and Hanna, I'm going to start off with you. What's your forecast on how the supply and demand dynamics will play out for the engine market, and how Engine Stands will look to position itself to service, that demand going into the future? What's your forecast?
We would definitely behave how the industry wants us to behave. So we are diversifying our portfolio. The engines which need to enter maintenance stages, we have to be well prepared for that. So that's the reason number one, we are growing the portfolio of our Engine Stands, and we do introduce new models. And we've remembered about even the CFM56-3 engine, which is still in service and not planning to leave it, despite the fact we spoke totally different like 2 years ago. Another very important point is, of course, to be closer to your customer, and we mean it. So we are opening new storage locations to be closer to our customers, as the time planning and delivery of needed tooling is crucial now at this moment. The tendencies, we also see that everybody is really starting communicating even more, which is important, and it's not possible to survive these times without that. As the result, in some cases, we do see a lot of demand, which is not, let's say, real. These are people trying to get them prepared for anything happens. And we saw OEMs manufacturing tooling, including stands, up front. At some point of time, speaking about some specific models, we see there are too many on the market, and they are on hold due to delayed slots, due to increased turnaround times, etc. And yes, of course, non-engine is moving without a stand if it's off-wing. That's the only possible option to do that. So we are there for our customers, approachable and becoming more reachable speaking geography.
And just expanding on that, Toma, on a micro level, what will Locatory be focusing on, especially going into the future in terms of meeting the market's needs? And, how do you see the market playing out going into the future?
As everyone is more active, as everyone is really willing to have as many sources, as many capabilities to see opportunities and how to minimize the risk, we are giving our customers not only the products but our service as well on top. So in case the spare parts needs to be repaired, overhauled, we are searching and giving them for the best possible options for this, that it would be locationally good and time-wise as well, as lead times are pretty long. As well, we are seeing that customers want to have more direct conversation. So we give an opportunity for them to talk directly while they can come to one place and see all market availability as of now. So those two as well are giving very beneficial tools for our customers that they can get connected very easily, but then they can have really good conversation in between each other and find the best solution for them. As well, we see that when we have labor shortages, companies need to have more services. So we can provide companies with the services like shipping, cleaning their storage, like identifying their surplus in their storages that we suggest to sell them. As well, we are connecting buyers and suppliers according to what they need. As well, companies are looking to have faster, more smooth processes, and that it will be more automated, as everyone wants to have more data and better planning processes. When everything is getting into more automation, there is an opportunity to have better predictions. So looking for this, we are having connectivity with ERP systems as well as different tools. So then companies have a possibility to use some sources, some tools, but to see everything in one picture. So as well, together with our team, we are having a lot of conversations with customers. As Hanna said as well, we are moving together with their need, but as well we want to be not too late with a suggestion for them. So always we are having to do a step before to make availability for customers to do their businesses tomorrow. So as well, Locatory is like a one-stop shop. We are adding more and more capabilities and as well opportunities for customers to come to one marketplace and see all possible supplies and services they need in their daily business or in their planning operations as well.